They've been for about 10 minutes. Stay tuned. Here's our second try.
I like dry beats like this.
Put on the full armor of God. Put on the full armor of God. Put on the full armor of God. Put on the full armor of God.
Tell me when your mixtape's on here.
We're gonna go for about 5 minutes in this live, so I'm hoping to stick around. I've actually got something to present. If you got anything to present. No. We're just doing. Oh, dude, what are you guys continuing stoicism? Well, we're doing a pre-production hangout where I want to make our discussion about how we're gonna take for part 2. Okay. But make a show out of it. Kind of just make at least a stream out of it to practice streaming. It's like it's good technical practice. Cool. Let's see if I left any O'Douls over here.
Always something to forget.
Yeah. I had an edible.
Hell yeah, dude.
I was gonna split. What?
Oh, you had one, but you don't have it. Well, dude, I got you covered. Let's smoke a bowl.
Alright. I'm gonna say no.
That's right, folks. We smoke weed.
I forgot it was live stream. Yeah, well, I'm off the government drugs. No more tobacco and alcohol at the moment.
I have to find a pipe. I don't know where my brother's pipe is.
I have one in my truck if you want me to.
Sam, be patient and I'll load a bowl for you.
No,
No, we're going now. You can do it later.
Alright, for the next 10 minutes, we're going to leave you with the ambient sound of silence.
Enjoy.
Maybe 5, you know. Don't get your hopes up. Keep a live stream going, guys. Well, if you skip 5 minutes ahead thinking that you're gonna get nothing, apparently we changed our minds.
Yeah.
So
What you
we got to skip back.
You're ruining it. Here, let me do it.
No, it's my weed. I load it.
All of it with my weed.
No, all of
Next,
it with my weed.
There's always later.
Fucking, you're gonna take forever.
I'm not.
It's just what you usually do, so he expects it.
You're ruining the ambience.
This is
You're
this is
ruining the
Claude.
ambient.
Do you have a better pipe?
Oh boy, here we go.
Can you like
Process.
Determinism, huh?
Something you pulled
Yeah,
up.
that's something
Was it,
that is a fundamental tenet of Stoicism.
Yeah, the look. Okay, look. Well, wait, we'll just save it. Just save it for the presentation.
The anticipation is killing people. At least you don't have a ton of subscribers right now, so we're not keeping tons of people waiting.
I mean, I can always edit this later too, I guess.
Yeah, cut it out.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's your smart.
Guys,
You
like,
cut it out.
fucking-
You cut it out. No, you. No.
That really like has that classic weed pungent odor.
Yeah,
You know that.
just cash that bowl. I'll load one.
Let me load one thing. Why we
No, I doubt it.
Who's next?
Jared's busy. Did you not know Amanda?
Which one?
Rockwood's? Yeah. She called me out.
You know this is on the live stream.
Yeah, I know. What's up?
We got beef.
I thought it'd be a funny story to tell.
Alright.
She called me out on my smoking weed all the time.
Well, she knows what that's about.
One time I told Jared that smoking weed is like being in an egg. It's necessary until you have to hatch.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just about to say something like that, but I was going to use a less
It's
apt
different.
analogy.
It's necessary in the original thought.
Where's your
Changing-
trash
changing your
can?
thoughts, but it's not. But it's kind of detrimental. To,
Yeah, but you can
to
plateau
trying
you.
to trying to take action. You know,
Yeah.
like, if you're trying
Well, it
to
depends on your personality. I mean, it gets me to work harder on certain things.
It can be a very useful tool, but it's also rather insidious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I don't know if you'd use in city. Why'd you?
Oh,
use
That's
that?
a great way to describe it.
Wow, like you got it's evil and
Trapped in your egg
No,
state.
not that it's evil.
It's,
It's that our
it's
addictive
malevolent,
nature, our
it's not
addictive
evil.
natures are pretty fucking evil.
Yeah.
But I have to like
I just smoke weed all the time.
Usually, when I have weed, I smoke it way too fast because I have a addictive like tendency. And then like my girlfriend, she'll buy like a pen, like an oil pen, and she'll keep it for like 2 weeks. Where I would like keep it for like 3 days before it's empty. And yeah, she like gives me like a hit from it, but then tells me no for like a while because she's smart.
What a good girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, controlling your consumption because you can't. Basically.
It sounds a little control freaky to me, but.
No, because she doesn't want to fucking waste
Yeah,
her
with
weed.
good intentions
Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay,
selfish
no, I see,
intentions.
no, because yeah, you smoke
Way too
all
much,
Of it.
yeah.
You smoke all of it.
Way too much.
Like when you come over and you smoke all my weed.
Way
that's
too
what
much. I
happens.
know.
So you
It's
can,
it's
so you can
excessive.
recognize Jared's shortcomings because you have the same. Oh, thanks. I got one. Figured I was already digging for it. Might as well, you know.
Finish the dig.
Like a good dry, tasty beer. Like it has very little taste. It's like almost like drinking like a it's almost like drinking a what do you call it?
Who's next?
A club soda or some shit.
Well,
Yeah,
keep
no
effing
flavor.
up
Yeah, a no flavor club soda.
keep effing up the thing with my lighter.
What's that music?
I don't know. Those were my 3 songs that I made for this week.
The organ grinder commands it, though.
Okay. Can you bring that to me? Oh, I have to go to you. Okay.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be smoking in this room. The other one. So I have to keep popping in and out, people, if you're listening. Though Jared might cut this out.
Your bud sucks, Sam. It sounds good.
You're such a positive, uplifting person, Jared.
Okay. We've been going for 9 minutes and we have no content. Oh, we have 1 viewer though. Damn.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's probably you.
It's probably our mom.
I think it counts the that as 1 viewer.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
It functions like Twitch, then, yeah. So concurrent.
We were having some great discussion before you started the stream, and I was wondering why you didn't start it before like.
Yeah, I know. You really just kind of what you're making the point of comparing stoicism to the armor of God.
Oh no, not the armor of God.
Putting on
I was
spiritual
saying,
armor.
I was saying that philosophy for the most part, a lot of
Yeah.
philosophy serves as consolation that gives you the endurance and the stamina to do what you already must do.
Where's the chair at?
Don't do it. It's over there.
And
Do you want to sit down on the
what
couch
you
or-
get out of
I'll pull it up in a bit.
what philosophy offers is sort of armor. So like you could do it without philosophy, but you would break your mind. Like you could live without philosophy, but your mind will become broken. You know, and like
Or you develop tougher. It's sort of like in life, like learning from experience. You're either going to develop tougher skin or you're going to break yourself. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's a traumatic process.
We didn't remember, Sam. We didn't actually get all 3 of your songs on the live stream because we had to stop with the.
Okay, I'll start with the first one. But yeah, so like the idea that like philosophy makes us resilient, or gives us resilience, gives us stamina and endurance, and like and that's all in the pursuit of our values. You know, like it gives us the endurance to pursue our values, gives us the stamina to continue.
Come
and
sit here.
So like.
I'll sit in a second. Thanks, though.
What I'm saying is
Can
that
you hang right here so it's over there behind you? Like, kind of like.
even if we didn't have philosophy, we would still have to do what we have to do in life. But we would be
Sorry.
corrupted and compromised and weaker because of it.
Yeah, definitely. But there is a problem that I found with the way that Stoicism has been presented modernly, recently.
What, not caring? The art of not caring? That's what I saw on YouTube.
Yeah, not giving a fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the art of not giving a fuck.
Did I send this video?
No, I saw it in my fucking recommendations. We all have the same algorithm giving us the same fucking videos in the recommendations.
Yeah.
So I want to cover this video and then I want to have a discussion about it.
Alright, cool.
Because a problem we ran into.
Yeah.
I ran into. We didn't stress enough this idea of causal determinism as being a tenet.
The thing is,
Because this is
pretty fine
this
things
is
to say.
no, but it does. But
for the most
it
part.
sells
But
sells stoicism as like a cure for nihilism and the doomer. It's called like
I 70 to 80% agree with that. They probably take it to an extreme
Yeah.
and make it stupid.
Can I say something about this? Okay, so like, essentially they're right. Essentially they're right that this Stoic philosophy gives you the armor to basically like it gives you the tool to say, I'm not going to concern myself with this. That's something a lot of people don't learn, and so for all their lives they're pestered and harassed and harangued by thoughts that they harangued. Read a book. But
It's really funny. My girlfriend used that word in a post recently.
yeah, so like people are harangued by thoughts when they don't know how to say, I'm not going to concern myself with
How do you
this.
spell harangued?
Harangued.
Harranged.
That was
Harranged.
one R.
Oh yeah.
Harangue.
Like what I'm doing right now, I'm
A
haranguing.
link. You're not aggressive.
But you know, when we're harangued by our own thoughts, you know, Stoicism can help us say, I'm not going to concern myself with that. But the thing is, Stoicism does not give you a comprehensive system for what you should say. I'm going to concern myself with this. It doesn't give you what you should concern yourself with. It's just a negative philosophy, meaning it allows you to subtract, but it doesn't have an additive element to it. It does, but it's very convoluted, and it's like we're talking about Chrysippus, who was like a compiler of what the early founders of Stoicism had to say, and he wrote a lot. Chrysippus,
Chrysippus. What?
Chry, Sippus, Sippus, yeah. He's the guy that really like wrote the textbook of Stoicism, in the sense that he covers the physics, the ontology, the epistemology, the fucking cosmology, the like all these different aspects or topics in Stoicism, like, you know, sub-subjects, and he gives you what's it called, like comprehensive system, like a system that's supposed to be universal. It's supposed to be like a general theory, like a theory of everything. And we are still pursuing theories of everything, but now it's in the domain of science mostly. That's the most legitimate form of saying, you can still say as a scientist, we're going to discover a theory that explains all phenomena,
You're still going. Are you done with your monologue?
yeah.
I just want you to be
however,
cognizant of. I
yeah.
liked a lot of it, and it's very intelligent. But then
However,
we're trying.
I would appreciate
Okay,
it more
so I'll wrap
as
it up, I'll
a
wrap it
response to
I'll
the
wrap it up.
presentation,
I'll wrap it
not
up.
a preface.
I'll wrap it up. Chrysippus presents a very, just like, what's the word? Complex, convoluted system of Stoicism, when really it can all be pared down to what the three main Roman Stoics said. Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, which is that you will always have the decision of what you concern yourself with. Will always and eternally be in your power, and that's a eternal truth. That's the truth of free will. It's the truth of self-determination, and that's essentially what Stoicism is.
Okay, so yeah, it seems like
Got one more thing to add to that.
it seems like what's his name, Chrysippus.
Yeah.
His deterministic outlook is basically, if the cosmos is ordered in a deterministic fashion and we are a part of it, then it would seem that we are ordered in a deterministic fashion. Thus, our actions will follow one upon the other in a succession where the nexus is never violable.
Yeah.
And if we may never deviate from the course ordered by fate, we never have the control to act otherwise. So he's basically making the same folly that materialists make when they talk about determinism. It's the same basic idea of determinism of like free will doesn't exist since everything is just even the chemicals in our mind are just just chemical physical
dominoes,
reaction,
yeah.
domino effect, and free will is an illusion.
Seth had a response to the 3 or 4 page thing he just read to the.
And we all know that. We all know
Note that
free
was
will
like
is not an illusion.
It's interesting how you put that, but mostly about, what was it? Not giving you the what to strive for. And I don't think anything can really, you can really not get like a concise answer to that from any text from any one person. It has to be found individually. So they set a very good framework. But
I would say that there's an element missing from Stoicism, and
I
it's
agree.
that essential vital force that I have identified in like the Christian, the Christ archetype. It's probably in other world religions, but that's like one of the most popular forms of the meme. So whatever, Christ, which is that God is love, and if you dwell in love, then you dwell in God, and God dwells in you, and like that's the Christ element that's missing in Stoicism. So that's what I would.
Well, Stoicism doesn't have to do with our relation to God or anything like that. It has
No, but
in
They
a more
do
abstract
believe
sense.
the virtue, connects us with the gods
Yeah.
and some other things. We'll get into it.
I
And
mean,
even not if you
in
want to
some
go
way-
into,
in
you
some
don't
way-
have to go into deism with that. You can just go.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the thing to go for is that connection, either with other people or with
Our humanity.
And some would say like the universe. If you go real deep into it.
When the Stoics talk about wanting to be truly yourself, regardless of external stimuli, they're talking about like your higher self, right? They're talking about the God self.
Yeah. Your higher consciousness instead of your lower
there's your
consciousness.
connection to what do you call it? The Christ consciousness. What we're talking like the Christ consciousness, I guess, isn't necessarily, or maybe it is
do
necessarily.
you believe in the idea that whatever we
wait.
pay attention to is what we are nurturing? Like,
in a sense,
Yeah, we
absolutely.
give our energy.
Yeah.
We give our energy to.
it's pretty simple.
Doesn't matter if it's
Whatever
your
you pay
time
attention to, you're growing. and if you decide what you're paying attention to. A lot of people aren't
No, but I'm
aware of
saying-
that, but like
I think we're saying two different things.
if you choose
about
to
the
pay
same
attention,
topic, but
if
we're
you,
not
if
like
you
talking
choose
about
to
the
pay
same thing.
attention to love, and that's what you're nurturing, like then you are nurturing like the same like vital forces that is God. Like that's
Or are you? Because there's different ways of or different philosophies around
Of
this.
course, yeah.
This
Different
this
perceptions of what God is and all that.
and what this relationship entails and what it involves and what it really is. Like there's the Christ explanation of it, then there's the
Well, that's not necessarily exclusive to Christianity, and a lot of people relate this across different religions.
Yeah.
Is that the Christ consciousness is the same as the Buddha mind?
Yeah.
Is the same as the universal?
no, they're talking about the same
life
thing.
force and all.
But
that.
anyway, you
I
guys.
see that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it crosses all religions.
I want to. So can I start my presentation?
Yes, go.
Sure.
And can you please reserve all comments till after the presentation?
Oh boy, how
Calling
long's the
kettle black.
presentation?
It's only going to be 8 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's just a YouTube video,
It's
right?
a YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to tell you about what I'm talking. Okay, so just so the audience knows, this is a Doomer meme.
Oh yeah.
Remember we were-
this conversation's
Okay.
hard.
I'm
So
listening.
Gotcha.
Can you explain it thoroughly? Because I'm gonna be in the other room. Like, just for a second, but I'm listening. Please explain it to me.
He can hear you.
Yeah.
So okay, so the Doomer, according to Google, is a person who believes that global problems of ecological exhaustion, such as overpopulation, climate change, pollution, and especially peak oil, will cause the collapse of human civilization and a significant human population die-off.
Industrial civilization is what it
So
said.
it's the idea that like we're all fucked
Yeah.
because
I like how you brought
it's
this up, Jared.
it's like
I
it's
could really dig into this.
no, but it's based on nihilism because these doomers are nihilists. They've
No.
turned. Yes, they are.
No,
They may be, but they
They're
are
saying we
also
created
pragmatists.
this.
Yes.
It's,
No.
we're not a victim of
No,
it.
We have
If you
created
understand
this.
the doomer meme and everything that's associated, this is nihilism.
Oh no, Jared.
Nothing matters because it's all just random chaos.
You have misunderstood this.
Jared,
Yeah, that's true.
you wouldn't feel doomed if there wasn't something that you were like losing or that you were.
Yeah, you're losing.
Okay.
Well, what the doomer is losing
Like, true
is
nihilism would
the idea of the baby boomer like ideal
Oh, Jared.
lifestyle
It feeds nihilism, but it isn't
is impossible to them now since they have this new like nihilistic doomer outlook of
If you were to read into this,
of the world. They
things
can never go back to having that illusion of the, you know what I mean? Of
Things that you argue against yourself, they are putting forth as problems that have caused something that they're viewing right now. Regardless of whether or not they have a nihilistic viewpoint, they're viewing the world.
Bring up the definition of nihilism.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up nihilism. Real quick. And then we'll jump into your other presentation.
The disavowal or denying of meaning, the denial of meaning.
The rejection of all religious and moral
rejection.
principles.
Okay, so
The belief that life is meaningless. Some of these people think it's so
so
meaningful
this is-
that they get freaked out that we're destroying
this
it
is
all.
moral relativism right here.
No, wait, Jared.
Okay.
Jared, wait. I
This
don't
is-
think
this is
that
another-
the
this is-
doomer.
this is-
wait,
this
you
is
a
haven't-
philosophical viewpoint.
You
Read that.
you haven't sufficiently responded to what I said. Like you can't feel doom unless you're not a nihilist and you
Yeah,
believe
Sam.
in meaning, because you don't
It
feel.
feeds nihilism. You're right, but
Because
I don't think it
fear,
is.
No,
nihilism.
fear and suffering and pain and harm, those are all like indicators of meaning. But a true nihilist would say that those that they reject fear, they reject suffering, like they reject. Yeah, basically.
No,
yeah.
Sam. Just because you're nihilist doesn't mean you have to be emotionless.
No.
People feel depression because they believe these things.
But-
Okay, no,
but
Sam.
that was-
Sam, look. Extreme skepticism maintaining that nothing in the world has a real existence.
Now,
that is
now
different.
look at the
This is
look at the definition over here.
solipsism.
Look
That's
at
not
the
even-
philosophy.
Oh, that is now you're just being incorrect. Solipsism is completely different from this.
Well, it's the same thing. Solipsism,
No,
the belief that
They are
the
distinct
only thing,
things,
no, but
Jared.
the only
Yeah.
thing that's real
No,
is
let's
yourself.
Keep this. Let's keep
No,
this
let's
to
look
the,
up solipsism.
Jared, let's not
compare
digress
them.
now.
Yeah.
Let's not digress. We have an argument.
Let's
or
look it
rebuttal.
up
Yeah,
here.
we want to hit this
The
shit.
viewer theory that the self is all that can be
No,
known
thank
to
you.
exist.
Stop looking at that and read this too. I mean, the same thing on nihilism. You completely ignored the philosophical.
Solipsism
tenets
is
of it.
a philosophical idea that only one's mind is sure to exist.
Now,
As
Jared.
an epistemological position, Solipsism holds that knowledge of anything outside of one's own mind is unsure. The external world and other minds cannot be known and might
So
not
they're related.
and might not exist outside the world. It's the belief that only yourself can be sure to exist and is all that can be known to exist. Now tell me how that's different
Now
from
read that.
extreme skepticism maintaining that nothing in the world has a real existence.
They're very
I'm just talking
related.
about-
Read this though.
They're related.
You'll
and
see
they
why.
Jared, I liked what you said earlier.
suggested
Jared,
denial.
Jared, you once said that
Hold
Trying
on,
to-
hold on,
trying
hold on
to
a second,
read
hold on a
this.
second.
Sorry.
Nihilism, Jared,
Shh,
hold on a
hold
second. Nihilism is the philosophical viewpoint that suggests the denial or lack of belief towards the reputed meaningful aspects of life. Most commonly, nihilism is represented in the form of existential nihilism, which argues that life is without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value.
So they're related, but not just.
Nothing can be known to exist, and there's no such thing as right or
Jared,
wrong, because we all decide
Jared,
it. We all decide it for ourselves.
Like,
You know
Jared,
what
it's
it's
weird
all
because
good.
you were more right earlier than you are right now. You're like, so you said earlier that moral relativism can be summed up as nihilism plus solipsism, and that sounds like a good argument to me.
No, I said nihilism can be summed up
What?
as moral relativism and solipsism.
No, you didn't.
Aaron,
That's
Not-
not.
no.
Okay.
I wouldn't say moral. Why would
between
you?
these two things now.
No, the former doesn't
I
make
swear to
sense.
God, that's what you
Between
said.
these two things,
I
like,
swear to God, that's
you're
what you
going,
said. Like,
all bees are insects, not all insects are
Yeah.
bees, Jared.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the argument you're
just
doing.
said-
It is insects and bees.
No, he just said.
They are
He
very
just said,
similar.
he just said moral relativism can be summed up as solipsism and nihilism, which doesn't make sense. What I meant,
It
what,
does
what I'm
sound-
saying
It
is,
sounds like you
what
are
I'm-
very
what
married
I'm-
to this idea
what
and
I'm
don't want to
saying
debate
is
it at all.
nihilism is a combination of moral relativism and solipsism, and that's why I just did the definition of nihilism.
Okay.
The rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief
Alright,
that
what's
life
your
is meaningless.
point
That's
of this?
moral relativism. And then extreme skepticism, maintaining that nothing in the world exists or has a real existence.
So he's
Alright,
gonna
this
connect
This is
it.
solipsism.
That
He's
is
going
not
to connect-
solipsism, Jared. It's not correct.
Now he's gonna
That's not even the
connect.
definition.
Now he's
of
gonna
it.
connect this to a
Seth,
video
how
on
is Seth, how is
stoicism.
this?
He's
Seth,
gonna
how is
say
this
that popular-
extreme skepticism
popular
that nothing
stoicism
exists
is
different
promoting
than this?
nihilism.
The view that
Uh,
the self is all that can be known to exist.
This is different because this is going back to
I
my
would-
simplified commentary.
I already know you're
It's
going
it's going to be. You're having nihilism where I don't even know how to explain this to you past how the simplification I've had. It's I'm the only thing. This is all a projection of my mind right now. That's solipsism. Like you, Aaron, Sam. That's all me. That's nothing else. You don't exist in this world. You don't exist in this world. That's
So I
solipsism.
can't-
Well, that's the only thing we can prove.
That's
is
the
what
only
it
thing we
says.
can prove.
Exactly.
Is that your own thoughts are real
Yeah.
and you're real.
Yeah.
Here's
Nihilism says everything's
Here's a
subjective.
question.
Yeah.
Could a
So
solid-
even
no,
that is
guys,
subjective.
It's the same. It's the
guys,
same thing.
Here's a question.
It's the same
No,
thing.
it's
Insects and
Question.
bees.
No, it's
guys, here's a question.
That's not what I'm saying.
Guys,
I know.
That's-
Can a
That's-
solipsist have faith in something that they believe in without? Because the definition of solipsism is that
If
the
they think it's a
only
part of
thing-
themselves,
the
yes,
only
they
thing
can.
that you can be sure of is that you exist and your mind exists. But could a solipsist have faith in something existing that they're not sure of, but they have faith, and is that a distinct
So
thing?
they
or
can
is-
believe in something
is-
but still acknowledge the fact that nothing can be sure to be known.
Exactly. Yeah. That's okay. So skepticism. That the
No. That's
no, Jared.
that's malignant skepticism.
I
Let
was
him
telling you,
finish.
I was telling you about the different
Anyway,
schools
it's not
that
my
were
idea.
competing with Stoicism at the same time: skepticism, Epicureanism, cynicism, Cyrenaicism, fucking like all these different schools, and like the skeptics there at the time they were known as the academics because they were the followers of Plato's Academy, and the one teaching that Plato offered was like the radical questioning of every premise, and that's the essence of Plato's dialogues. Is that Socrates just demonstrates how you can ask somebody about their beliefs.
How does that relate to what you were saying
So-
earlier?
Okay, because solipsism is a radical questioning in a academic skeptic fashion of
How can they?
your
Wait
belief that
a
other
second.
people
Wait a
exist.
second. How do you make a scientific inquiry at all if nothing can be known outside of your own mind?
Do we know the sun's gonna rise tomorrow? No, because that knowledge is
Because they don't know their own
empirical.
mind well enough.
There's
That's the
there's
way
a
they
category
believe
of knowledge known as empirical knowledge, such as the sun will rise, because it's based on experiences that we've had in the past.
Okay.
So,
So we can know. So you can
well,
only.
do you really
you
know
can,
the sun's gonna rise
no,
tomorrow?
but to a solipsist.
Do you know for sure the
no, but
sun's
yeah,
gonna
to a
rise
solipsist
tomorrow?
they would say no.
Jared, do you know for sure the sun's gonna rise tomorrow?
Yes.
That's to
No, I
me
don't.
that yeah, to
Yes,
me
you
that's
do.
faulty. To
It
me,
could
that's-
something could happen
Yeah.
that stops that.
Dude,
Yeah.
I mean,
based on like how everything connects to and works with everything else,
not a
and how it
fucking
has worked,
prophet.
you can know.
Well,
It's
things
called-
aren't going to go on forever,
You-
though.
Dude,
Eventually,
Yeah,
it's
one day
knowledge,
the sun will
scientific
rise.
fact.
Something could
Entropy
affect
is a
it
thing.
to where it wouldn't, right? To where someone
Yeah,
could block
some-
out.
Yeah, something could affect it,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean we don't know that it's going to
Ex-
rise.
No, no, the rise-
Something could happen.
It's
to it
still
and we
not.
don't
Well,
know.
then that's the idea of what's a sunrise. Is it us seeing the sun rising, or is it actually the sun coming over the rotation of the Earth, and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Like, if there's no sun, the sun doesn't rise. If the sun is blocked, the sun doesn't necessarily rise in our perception. It's still there,
Are you really going to argue whether or not the sun exists if we don't see it?
No, I'm not.
That's not
no,
the
I'm
argument,
not.
Jeremy.
That's not what I was arguing.
Because we know it does.
I was saying that I don't know that it'll
Sure,
rise
sure.
tomorrow.
That's not even the argument. Listen to what he's saying.
Oh no, he
Empirical
He understood
knowledge
part of it,
is also
misunderstood part
known
of it.
as
What did I misunderstand?
that I wasn't trying to make an assertion of it not the subjectivity or objectivity of the sun. I was trying to explain that I may not know whether it rises tomorrow or not because there are different events that could change whether you get what I'm saying. Where
There could be
it's
a-
quote unquote.
Okay, just because something could happen doesn't mean that based on
there could be a
everything we
freak
know.
astronomical event
Yeah, I'm just devil's
where
advocate.
there isn't a sunrise tomorrow. You can admit that, but like what you should be able to admit is that you don't know with complete certainty that it's going to rise tomorrow because empirical
Yes, I
knowledge
do.
empirical knowledge is also known as inductive reasoning, and Socrates talks about the difference between I don't know if it's
This is not inductive
inductive
reasoning.
reasoning is saying
Deductive.
that every bird I've seen is black, therefore most birds are black. That's inductive reasoning, or therefore all birds are black, or
Instead of
most birds.
deductive.
Yeah, inductive. And deductive is the converse of that. Deductive is only based on formal logic, which is to say, like, wait, look up deductive reasoning. I can't do that justice as well.
Did inductive pretty good
Inductive.
justice. I'm kind of impressed by how well you're able to recall some of that.
Thanks.
And I'm also upset that Seth isn't pushing his way in more because I want to hear what he has to say.
Oh, we'll get real into that on the doomer aspect of it. With Jared's argument. Get out of the way.
Okay, so deductive reasoning is using other things you know to be true to deduce what is.
Yeah, it's like triangulation almost logically.
Click. Can you go on it? I want to read it more in depth.
Of course you do.
You know,
Okay.
Top
Deductive
down.
reasoning, top-down logic,
Yeah.
contrasts with inductive reasoning, quote unquote, bottom-up logic, in the following way. In deductive reasoning, a conclusion is reached reductively by applying general rules which hold over the entirety of a closed domain of discourse, narrowing the range under discourse, Jared. Narrowing the range under consideration
Why are you yelling that?
until
Why does that matter?
We were talking about
Oh,
that.
until he was like, "Why does discourse matter?" Under consideration until only the conclusion
Probably didn't mean it that way.
until only the conclusion is left. In inductive reasoning, the conclusion is reached by generalizing or extrapolating from specific cases to general rules, i.e., there is an epistemic uncertainty, such as solipsism.
Oh.
However, an epistemic means knowledge, like there's an uncertainty of knowledge. However, the inductive reasoning mentioned here is not the same as induction used in mathematical proofs. Mathematical induction is actually not a form of is actually a form of deductive reasoning. Okay.
Huh.
Abductive reasoning is another thing. What is that?
I never heard that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna look up. Damn it.
Relative to conditionals? Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
Damn it.
We're talking about
deductive
meta logic right now.
reasoning for a sunrise.
Oh, here we go.
Must include sunrise.
Yeah, you gotta. You could just put quotes
No,
on
just
sunrise.
you click on that,
Or
Jared.
whatever.
Click on
Or
must.
you could click that.
Right
No,
there.
you-
No. Oh
whatever.
man. Okay.
Whatever. Still works. Jared,
Pointing
let's-
at the screen.
Okay. Alright.
Problem of induction. That might be helpful.
We're really hung up on this sunrise thing.
No, we already know what the problem with induction is.
Like
Generalizing.
they might have a fucking more context on it, like what people have said about it and shit.
So, your doomer and nihilism and solipsism, how does it relate to the video, and where are we going with that presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, look. So, the doomer meme. Okay. This is a person who's fallen. Look, let me just show you a video.
I want to see that picture. Go back.
Oh,
Can we
dang.
please just look at that picture, like
Never
close up?
thought
Click
that-
on that one. Yeah, yeah. Close up.
Far left, yeah. There you go.
Never thought I'd have this image as a serious form of discussion.
Dude, you gotta get with the dirtbag internet community.
Maybe plays PS1 sometimes. No hope of career advancement. Alcoholism. Tried weeding. Tried fashion. Tried lifting. Ashamed to speak with family. High risk for opioid addiction. Fuck, I can't say opioid.
Yeah.
Hasn't made a friend since 2012.
Another night in.
Lost youth. Cloud rap. Cares but knows there's nothing he can do.
Oh, cares. He's not a nihilist, Jared. He cares.
Interesting.
No, but
But he does give.
No,
he
no,
says
he
there's
can't-
nothing he can
no,
do.
But that's-
he cares, but nihilism is that nothing matters.
But
Nihilism isn't that you don't care,
how can you care about something that doesn't matter?
because why exactly? That's part of their existential crisis. Like, oh no, why do I care so much when nothing matters? Right?
Well, then they're deluded because things matter, and like nihilism is bullshit.
Look
So
at this.
Oh, we are really pissing off some nihilist viewers right now.
no, they don't care.
High five.
Hey, hey.
That was a good one.
Look at Doomer's Friday night.
We're gonna get copyright strikes.
Somebody else's.
At least, yeah, there are less strict on YouTube videos.
Yeah, dude. This is like life in Ohio, like anywhere in the Midwest. Just like dark roads, fucking self-checkout.
Super low, Jack.
Did you know
Like,
that?
it's a picture of this. There's this doomer meme, right?
Like, oh, we can't live like our parents live because the world's different, and they have all these fucking lies.
balls
Like,
long
the
enough
world's
to unlock
overpopulated
this sword
and
in the
shit.
center
They
that's
believe all this
encased in
bullshit.
crystal. This
Yeah.
little blue guy here
Yeah.
can't
Some of
catch
it's
you
because
when
we're
you're
not
in
all
the
kids.
center
It's based on
whatever
truth.
this is.
No, it's
But
based
the
on
big
a lot
blue
of
guy
fucking
can catch you from
bullshit.
literally
A lot of
anywhere.
people can't
Even if
see
the
truth
top
that
of
are
his head
exaggerated.
scrapes
A lot
on
of
the
people
inside
can't
of
watch
the
it, so
building,
he's watching
inside of the
YouTube
building,
videos
he
of
gets
things
you.
that don't matter.
Jared, a lot of
Alright,
people can't see
motherfucker.
themselves
Yep.
outside of
Yep,
memes.
got it. Wow,
And
that
when
boy
they
was so
can't
brave,
do
he
that,
sent someone
then
else
they
to get
do
the sword
become
for
like
him.
a stereotype,
Magical
but,
gifts all day. Surprise!
You can
I
do
think
all
that,
of this
like,
and
the
much,
best memes are the
much
ones
more.
that are, like,
If Arena
all
was
on
more
guard,
of a
like,
classic
they're
dungeon
they're
crawl
literally
CRPG
just, like,
with
catching,
fantasy
like,
life
people
simulation
as they
elements,
are right
Daggerfall is
now,
arguably
you know?
more a fantasy life simulator with dungeon crawl CRPG elements. While some might consider this distracting from the core gameplay, me, well,
Yeah,
I kind of
gameplay
love it.
videos.
Sometimes I just
Yeah.
want to buy a horse
This is
and
how
go
people
riding
are right
around
now.
looking
That's
for
why this
trouble,
is a good
and then
meme.
find it at the end of
This
my
is what people
sword
are doing
meeting.
right now, Jared.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all done portions of this.
Yeah.
Speaking of-
Everyone's looking at a screen. Looking at a screen or listening to political revolution that was like incredibly fucking world historic, like out of that kind of
okay. Look, we're gonna look at the whole nihilism thing is something that we have to cover as a contrary view to Stoicism because it's being sold to be a cure for nihilism, but like.
So people are.
We are born into this.
This video is correct because it says that.
Have you ever noticed how some people just light up a room from the moment that they walk in? Now, if you've ever struggled with
this course can tell you, like, what to care about.
Does being on video freak you out?
And, like,
I get it, but you can be totally comfortable on camera.
We are born into this world hungry, vulnerable, and confused. As we go through life, we attempt to eliminate these feelings by trying to control the conditions of the world around us. We seek to accomplish and obtain things, achieve higher status, acquire wealth or fame, develop power, and so on. We live with a persisting hopefulness that in the future we will have and control enough stuff to free ourselves of our emptiness, vulnerability, and confusion, and find some ultimate happiness and security outside of ourselves. This hopeful vision of the future might sound reasonable, but perhaps it is what keeps us contained in our problems. To help us better understand and deal with our seemingly unquenchable hunger for ultimate control and happiness outside of ourselves, we will look to the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. Stoicism is a philosophy that started in ancient Greece and was then further popularized in ancient Rome. Stoicism is an especially unique philosophy in how potently it has withstood the test of time across thousands of years. Arguably, the teachings and wisdom of Stoic philosophy are equally, if not more relevant today than ever. In recent history, Stoicism has found huge appeal. It was used and encouraged by recent historical leaders like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Nelson Mandela, written about by current popular authors like Tim Ferriss, Robert Greene, and Ryan Holiday, just to name a few, and has found a rather large community on the internet. Stoicism's enduring popularity is not without good reason. The principles of Stoicism can help us find calmness, presence, and resilience in a world of increasingly overt chaos, anxiety, and insatiable desire for more. In Stoicism, we exist in a reality that does not care about our personal opinion of it. We cannot ask it nicely to remove the chaos, suffering, hardship, and uncertainty, nor can we will ourselves onto it with force in order to do so. However, Stoicism suggests that does not mean we are subject to be helpless victims of the world. Rather, Stoicism proclaims that there are two domains of life: our external, being the things outside of our mind, which we cannot control, and the internal, our interpretations and reactions to the external, which we can control. When we persist with the belief that things outside ourselves or things in the future will provide us with a form of ultimate happiness, we become dependent on things that are not part of us nor part of what we can control, and thus remain endlessly unsatisfied and unhappy. We can and should pursue the things that we deem preferable and interesting, and not live an inactive life. However, we must ensure that on our pursuits, our focus remains on the internal, and that we work to derive our sense of joy from how we think and act within our pursuits. No matter what task we undertake, we will do it wastefully if we assume that any of what comes beyond the task will provide anything better than the experience of focus and presence in the task itself. There's nothing inherently wrong about working towards and achieving wealth, fame, or power, but in the Stoic's mind, these things are merely to be enjoyed if they do work out, but not to be depended on for one's happiness. For if one is dependent on them, their happiness and peace in life are especially susceptible to being inconsistent, taken, or never achieved at all. Stoicism suggests that the sign of a truly successful person is someone who can be okay without the things he or she typically desires or depends on for comfort. For no wealth, materialistic abundance, fame, or power has any value to a happy life if the person who possesses them has not yet learned to live properly without them. Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful person in the world during his time. He had access to anything he could have ever wanted, yet he writes, "Almost nothing material is needed for a happy life, for he who has understood existence." With access to the world, Marcus Aurelius lived with little interest in the self-indulgence of things outside of himself. In order to develop this fortitude, a common practice in Stoicism is to, on occasion, temporarily strip oneself of the things they ordinarily depend on for comfort in order to prove to themselves how strong they truly are without the things they think they need. In the piece of classic literature entitled Letters from a Stoic, Roman statesman and one of the most renowned Stoic philosophers, Seneca, writes, "Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are. We've been using them not because we needed them, but because we had them." It is in our constant expectation that something outside ourselves or in the future is needed for a worthy experience of life that causes our inability to ever find worthy experience in life in the first place. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca discusses the idea of how to properly handle one's time and derive meaningful experience. When referring to time, Seneca writes, "I advise you to keep what is really yours, and you cannot begin too early, for as our ancestors believed, it is too late to spare when you reach the dregs of the cask. Of that which remains at the bottom, the amount is slight and the quality is vile. It is now that we must find time, and it is now that we must find happiness if it is either that we are seeking. For if we do not focus the lens through which we view life right now, everything we see from this moment forward will remain out of focus." For the Stoic, the ability to find happiness in spite of what occurs around us is developed through...
Is happiness, finding happiness, any part of Stoicism?
It can be related, but
Yeah,
not.
we were talking about ataraxia.
I thought it was about finding your order in things.
We were talking about ataraxia. That comes as a natural result of achieving your order.
Unless
your place in the order.
and more like not deriving pleasure from things around you, but finding what you can without those things.
Yeah, I think they also tried to make a parallel between the Buddhist philosophy of like avoiding desire, avoiding desire as just avoid desire, just to avoid desiring things.
This is a problem.
Right?
This is a problem.
Like denying your desire as a way of avoiding suffering.
Sure.
Or evolving.
Sure.
The Buddhists do it for periods of time to show. It's sort of like an avenue of reaching enlightenment.
This video has a problem of a bad title because the content is good.
Or he's doing it on
No,
purpose.
wait. It does this at the end. Right now it's doing a good job, but wait till the end.
Yeah, right now it's doing a very good job, Jared.
through character and perspective. We must realize that nothing is good or bad inherently, but only our judgments and interpretations of things can be good or bad. The wise man, Seneca writes, is neither raised up by
There's some more relativism right there. They're saying that like nothing is good or bad inherently. That
comes directly from the Roman Stoics, so and earlier, like that's one of the.
That's part that I don't completely agree, but then our perceptions do affect reality, and we'll talk more about that later.
Let me just okay, so I wrote down 3 things.
Hold on a second, let's finish this video.
No, wait, Jared, just hold up for a second because you're saying it's moral.
He said hold all questions to the end, and we've already jumped in 3 times.
I feel like that we should just fucking.
We do have.
Let me fucking say this.
17 seconds.
Okay, so
we have about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm
three fundamental tenets, presuppositions of Stoic philosophy. In physics, the idea that the world is supremely rational, divine, and a good organism, like meaning the world is an organism. It's a form of like pantheism. The world as a whole is God. That agrees with Plato, and it disagrees with the Epicureans who see the world as essentially meaningless. That's real nihilism. And then another tenet is in epistemology. They believe that we have an infallible grasp of truth that's known as like the cognitive impression in our
Yeah,
rational
yeah,
minds.
phenomenology.
Yeah, so we have an infallible grasp of truth. That's a faculty of our mind. That's a
Okay, just because we
uh,
have
that's a good- that's-
just because we have an infallible.
rejecting nihilism.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because truth isn't a thing in nihilism. Nihilism annihilates truth. It annihilates.
Yeah, nihilists don't believe absolute truth
Yeah,
exists.
yeah.
Versus phenomenology, which acknowledges that truth exists, but that our interpretation of it is always flawed.
Okay, and then in ethics, the Stoics believe that only virtue is good. Things aren't good that you do. People aren't good, but only virtue is good. I mean, I meant.
Yeah.
Only the things you do can be good. But wait. So, what I wanted to say was, you say that there's,
I don't see how this.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, what the Stoics do provide one idea of what you should care about, and the one thing that Stoics say that you should care about is your ability to choose what you care about, your faculty of mind to choose what you care about, and also your ability to know the truth. That's something you should care about. You should believe.
Yeah,
and
knowing
care
the
about
truth.
Knowing the truth.
Okay, so then
They
if
believe
so,
that you know
so if the truth exists, then there is such
Yeah.
thing as good and bad.
Yes, but
what is the truth?
no, but Jared, like.
Whereas
actions.
and I don't see how. Also, they're trying to use this quote to say that like Seneca supported the statement that nothing
you're
is
right.
good and bad in and of itself.
Yeah.
And this doesn't even say that at all. He's saying a wise man is neither raised up by prosperity nor cast
Yeah.
down by adversity, for always he is driven to rely predominantly on himself and to derive all joy from himself.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with whether or not things are good
That's
or
a
bad.
chasm
in and
that
of
we need
themselves.
to investigate.
So, but anyway, let's
Yeah.
continue to watch them
Okay.
obfuscate the issue here
All right.
and sell
Prosperity.
nihilism as stoicism.
Nor cast down by adversity, for always he has striven to rely predominantly on himself and to derive all joy from himself. In other words, we must try to form our perspective to best serve our ability to remain with happiness and wonder, regardless of the ups and downs of life. Stoicism suggests that we are but a tiny feature of
So we should do everything within our ability to make sure that we have a happy perspective. That's stoicism, guys.
the entire body of nature, and everything that happens to us is a matter of relevance and necessity to everything beyond us. In this, we must
Let's go back. Let's do that
Everything
again.
that happens to us, it happens.
try to
as a
form
matter
our
of
perspective to best
relevance
serve
and
our
necessity.
ability to remain with happiness and wonder, regardless
To try to preserve our ability to be to create cultivate a perspective so that we can have a perspective of
You're
happiness
I
and
think
happiness
One
and
second,
wonder.
1 second,
You're putting
Jared.
words in
Guys.
his mouth.
No, let's go back. Let's listen to that part again.
I think you're misunderstanding.
No, listen.
is developed through character and perspective. We must realize that nothing is good or bad inherently, but only our judgments and interpretations of things can be good or bad. The wise man, Seneca writes, is neither raised up by prosperity nor cast down by adversity, for always he has striven to rely predominantly on himself and to derive all joy from himself. In other words, we must try to form our perspective to best serve our ability to remain with happiness and wonder, regardless of the ups and downs of life. Stoicism
Okay, first he said that stoicism says that nothing is good or bad in and of itself, and then he uses a Seneca quote which doesn't even say that. He's talking about how we derive joy from our own minds, and then he says, in other words, we should develop a perspective so that we preserve happiness and wonder. So he said three different things which made no connection with each other, but were all lies, and they were selling nihilism.
I wouldn't say the last part is selling nihilism. If you let me go on about this,
Wait, can
it's
I
that
No. He hasn't
So-
fucking talked.
Okay, yeah.
you have
Down.
for the last part of it. It's that I feel that he's trying to get out. You're trying to not have the world bearing down in your mind so strongly that you can't find the joy and wonder in it still. That's what I'm getting from it, which would go completely against nihilism. So I think you may be misunderstanding.
No,
this.
it's selling. No, it's
Somebody-
saying. It's saying
Now,
just
Jared,
because.
Jared,
Wait,
Jared,
Seth,
Jared,
I'm
Jared,
gonna respond.
Jared,
Wait, let me say no.
Jared,
Let me
Jared,
just say
Jared.
something in response to both of us. It's really short and simple.
I want to respond
Somebody
to what
once
Seth
said-
said. I
somebody
want to
said-
respond to what Seth said.
somebody
Like,
said
he just said
that-
something to me.
Somebody said that the best way to walk through life was with a attitude of innocence and wonder, and those are things that can be preserved in through stoicism, like I think. So that's what I got.
Okay, can you repeat what you said again, Seth? I'm sorry, I forgot what you said again. Because Sam had to just say some random thing to just compliment.
No, innocence and wonder, and like that's
It really is Seth right now.
it does, because wonder is what we're talking about. The idea that stoicism allows you to experience the wonder that.
Sam, can I respond to what Seth said, please? About how okay, I don't care. Sam, listen, just hold on a second, okay? Because I don't want to lose this thought, okay? And you're just kind of like
All right, you're meta talking. Just
trying
do
to
it.
strengthen Steph's
Seth.
point, but go ahead.
I heard his point.
Okay, say it.
Your statement about nihilism, a nihilist, is wanting to seek happiness and wonder is contrary to nihilism.
Well, I didn't say that they wanted to seek happiness and.
No, but the idea, you said the idea of doing what you can to still be able to experience happiness and wonder, and that being a contrary viewpoint to nihilism. Wrong. A nihilist acknowledges that nothing matters, but he does what he can to enjoy it, because the idea that's sold to us in these movies as a nihilist philosophy is we create our own meaning. There is no meaning,
That's not
but
true
we
nihilism.
can create meaning in
That's
the world,
not true
and that's the only
nihilism.
meaning that exists.
That's
The
something
meaning
else.
that we create.
That has a different name if it's something, because it's not nihilism.
Maybe a sect or
Sam, just
vision of
because-
Nihilism is the annihilation of meaning. That is some
No,
kind
they're
of different
saying
thing that they made.
they're saying meaning doesn't exist, but we can find meaning for ourselves.
That's just mainstream popular nihilism, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
Or
but
is
yeah,
that
no, but
something-
the
No, but
idea of
it's
regardless of whether or not you can find meaning
It's some kind of hybrid. That's
doesn't
not-
change the fact that
it's
you
some
still
kind of
believe
hybrid
that meaning
that's-
doesn't
it's
exist,
some
which is
kind
a
of-
nihilism.
Jared, it's some kind
That
of
there is no
hybrid-
meaning in anything
it's
inherently.
Jared, it's
There is
Everybody,
no-
everybody really wants to be
Fuck
heard.
you, Jared. You can't fucking listen for a second, man. You can't
Both
fucking
you
listen
guys are
for a
doing
second.
it.
The
Except
idea
for,
that, the
just
idea that there's
watching.
no intrinsic meaning to anything
You can't fucking
doesn't
listen
just
for a
doesn't
second.
change the
Oh,
fact that
man.
we can still find our
I
own
let
meaning.
you talk and then you didn't let me talk. That's as simple as it gets.
Go ahead, Sam. You guys are really worked up though. Just take a deep breath.
Jared,
Realize everyone wants to be
what
heard.
you're describing is an ideology that's contradictory because it embraces nihilism, and it also contradicts nihilism because it says that you can create meaning, which is contradictory to nihilism.
No, it's
And
not.
that's
No,
fucking
it's not.
Yes, it is.
Sam, if you believe that we create meaning, and that means that you don't believe that it's
I don't
inherent.
think that's what he's
The
trying
whole
to
idea
do.
of nihilism is that it's not intrinsic.
Alright, should you guys keep beating that dead horse or?
I'm done. I pointed it out. Whatever. You finally let me
We
talk.
can look it up.
You finally let me
You can look
respond.
that up.
Stop pouting.
Well, Jared, I
You
would
both
take
out.
unfair.
Fucker.
Dude, what? So then you do a
Listen to
judgment,
people's-
and then you think that's gonna make it better?
You're a fucker. I don't know. Fuck you.
I can understand your frustration with
Yeah.
the cliches that
say a
statement
lot of
may
stuff. Family and stuff like that. Anyway,
You can't
you
listen.
guys really took that really personal.
Yeah, I did
And it hurts
listen.
your feelings, and then you want to hurt the other person.
Sam, I just repeated what you said to me. Sam, if we believe that we can create,
No.
think about that, creating meaning, that's subjectivism.
You interrupt too much.
I would consider, Jared, that you may not be repeating exactly
you've done
back
the same
the
thing
idea.
with Seth, with a few other people you
At
just
least
talked
I
over.
apologize.
How is that not
That's true.
relativistic?
Let's go.
How is that not moral relative? Or how is that not nihilism? We can create meaning. What does that imply? That meaning is not intrinsic.
So it's
Hence
still
the
not.
definition of nihilism. That meaning is there's no intrinsic meaning.
Where the fuck is my weed?
A good question. It's not nihilism, Jared. What you're describing is not nihilism. You're making some real jumps there, I feel.
Sam, let's read the definition of nihilism again.
But you're making your own definition.
Nihilism is the rejection of meaning, Jared. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Argues that life is without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value.
Click the Wikipedia. Let's read it all.
Without objective meaning.
This is not proving your point, though, Jared.
He's saying subjective meaning is different, but the thing is, it's like true nihilism is the rejection of meaning. Stop. Full stop. That's the essence of nihilism.
No, Sam, because Sam, we seek. It doesn't change the fact that we seek meaning.
You
Like
can't just
the
say
nihilists
no
will
and argue.
acknowledge that we seek meaning, so they will argue that meaning, the only meaning that really exists, is the meaning that we create for ourselves.
You're tagging stuff.
That's
onto
not.
this.
That's like it's still not believing in meaning. It's still denying intrinsic meaning.
I lost it.
Well, it's got to be
Probably
something.
not forever.
Can you, Sammy? Are you gave up on? Giving up on the show and bailing on me?
He just wants to smoke some weed because he's not dealing with this very well at the moment.
Mm-hmm. One thing to
Is
consider.
this hard for you?
We're having a discussion, so you have to have a civil discussion with it, and I would suggest.
Well, you're making a logical fallacy when you say that the creation of meaning is not the same thing as denying intrinsic meaning.
I think that's a fallacy in itself. What you're trying to describe, Jared.
It's not in the room.
Seth, you don't see that?
Oh, it's right here. Is this yours?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, thanks.
No problem.
Thanks for
Seth, you don't see that?
appreciate that.
Just trying.
I see what you're trying to get at, but I don't think, one, if we go by the bare bones definition of nihilism, you're not hitting the mark with what you're trying to, how I feel, tack onto it. The argument you're trying to make
I'm just trying to practice some stuff.
with that statement you've made before
Yeah, let's get up to.
is you have like an offshoot of nihilism, or you have nihilistic,
everyone does.
you have a nihilistic view, but it's not nihilism, if that makes sense.
It's hard.
Like nothing really matters. But if someone is creating their own value, they're creating their own sort of path. They're believing in that. They have to passionately believe in that. So it's not fitting the definition. If you're trying to make an argument
They
against
deny
it,
intrinsic meaning.
We might be talking
Yeah.
about an ideology that's being peddled, but it's not nihilism. It's some kind of belief system that incorporates nihilism, but also
Sam, what does
but also denies disavows nihilism in the end.
what does creating meaning for ourselves imply?
I said what I had to say.
one can
I'm
create
asking you.
meaning.
I'm asking a question.
If I can
Like, what
answer
does
on
what
his
does that
behalf.
imply? Like
Well,
we
that's
create.
a fucking leading question. There's
Yeah.
no fucking answer you want to hear.
If
just
you
wanna talk.
want to
This
if
is-
you create meaning, Jared,
Sam,
if you want
this-
an answer to this.
This video.
This is also what he's getting upset about as well, is you not listening to me. You're not listening to Jen.
Yeah, man, you're right.
I am listening.
Well, no, you're interrupting and you're trying to speak over everybody because you want to get a point across, but not letting anyone else get a word in edgewise. That's why Sam is so very upset. Like, if you want
He
to
didn't
have
mean it that way. He thought he was interrupting the flow of conversation, and he thought it was out of order, and then he kind of let it go, and then he felt pissed off that he was letting it happen, and then he interrupted and stopped it, and then he got all upset.
Sam, you've been interrupting everybody tonight. I mean, I'm
He
not.
realized that he acknowledged that he's calming down, dude.
Mhm.
Just everybody calm down. There's a thing here where we
Let's replay that part. again.
waiting your turn to speak or listening.
Will remain out of focus. For the Stoic, the ability to find happiness in spite of what occurs around us is developed through character and perspective. We must realize that nothing is good or bad inherently, but only our judgments and interpretations of things can be good or bad. The wise man, Seneca writes, is neither raised up by prosperity nor cast down by adversity, for always he has striven to rely predominantly on himself and to derive all joy from himself. In other words, we must try to form our perspective to best serve our ability to remain with happiness and wonder, regardless of the ups and downs of life. Stoicism suggests that we are but a tiny feature of the entire body of nature, and everything that happens to us is a matter of relevance and necessity to everything beyond us. In this, we must strive towards an acceptance and indifference towards everything that happens to us, and instead focus our attention on controlling our reactions to the things that happen. We must put
Okay. All right. So does focusing on how we react to things mean that we should be entirely indifferent to external events?
No.
Exactly.
What it means? No.
Exactly.
We're not. Jared,
But
you
it doesn't
answer
say that.
Yes, it
Jared.
does.
That's what he's saying a little bit. It's his interpretation of it.
What are
that's-
you remarking
that's-
exactly towards though?
I'm remarking about how this video is selling nihilistic and solipsistic and moral
I don't think
relativistic
that's right.
philosophies
I do not get
as
that at all.
Stoic philosophy.
I can see how it's tinging it with it, but you might be taking that to an extreme. Let's finish it. Let's see if maybe end of
Everything beyond us. In this, we must strive towards an acceptance and indifference towards everything that happens to us, and instead focus
An acceptance and indifference
But
to everything
towards
that happens to
towards
us.
it. That doesn't mean 100%.
We can't control anything that happens to us.
And it's-
Only how we react.
He didn't
There's,
say that.
there's nuance to this, Jared, that I think is being missed.
Yeah, you're missing some of the nuance there. He said towards that. He doesn't
No, I
say you
think
go
he's
all the
getting
way
it.
to it.
I think he's getting it. This is like
But you
the
guys think the
difference.
same.
It's Epictetus, his life, versus the life of Seneca. It's like that's what you're talking about. Epictetus really couldn't control what happened to him.
Okay.
And that anybody could be in his shoes at some point or another. So like fundamentally that's true. That we can't control what happens to us. But we can control our reaction to it.
We should be acceptant and indifferent, right?
No, towards that. Not like you just because you're a little
Be-
more accepting doesn't mean you 100% accept.
Be acceptant and indifferent of what
Not
happens to
even-
you.
I don't think so. There's where the nuance comes in. You should not be indifferent to it.
Should we?
No, Jared, if you'll listen to me, please. Yeah?
Keep going. Keep going.
So, you should not be indifferent to it, 100% indifferent to it. You are controlling, you're putting a filter up. Say, this event happened. It didn't exactly happen to me. This event just happened. What are my reactions to it? What am I choosing to let affect me? How am I going to let this affect me? What can I do about this? What can I not do about this? And what should I not be stressing over in that category of what can I not do about this situation? And then you should have it affect you, not being indifferent. You should have it affect you in a way of, this happened. What can I do about it? What am I going to do about it? What would I like to do about it? You're stressing the points that you have power and control over, and if the situation is entirely out of your control, you are going in your mind and saying, I'm not going to worry about this if I have no power to control it. Am I missing anything, Sam?
But we do have power to control what happens to us to some extent.
To some extent, but not completely.
How do you
Because you can see
how do you
things.
distinguish between the
You
two?
can see things happen. You can see things coming, and you can avoid it.
Let's
Not always.
a contrivance then. Say you're a father, you're at your home, and you get a call. It's like, oh, your daughter got hit by a truck. Terribly morbid, but she's gone. So, did he have power over that situation? Because in certain situations, someone will be stricken with guilt over something that they had no control over. Or is he going to say, I could not help this situation, I was nowhere near this? And then further, how are they going to react to this situation? Are they going to be stricken with grief, so much so that they can't operate? Or are they going to try to process this in a healthy manner and do what they can in that situation to, in this sense, say, celebrate the life up until this point, their daughter's life up until this point? That's something they can do that is both, it'll be good for them, though mostly it'll be good for them, but it's something they have power over, they have control over this. They can control this situation in a way that's not going to be so terrible for them.
Yeah. They say we can't control. We should be indifferent and
to things that aren't
acceptant and indifferent of the things that happen to us. And then it says what we can control is how we react to it. But it seems to me that you can control what happens to you because you control how you react to it.
But it's not a black and white thing though.
It's a spectrum.
Yes.
Jared, you can yeah, like you can like build things in your life, but you can't control what happens to those constructions.
Acknowledging what you can't control doesn't really involve what happens to you.
You do build things and create things, and
you can to some extent control what happens to you.
Yeah, I agree, but
they're saying you should be acceptant and indifferent of what happens.
No. They said towards. You're rewording what they actually said.
Use what
towards what happens to you.
No, you work towards indifference and acceptance. I keep saying that. They don't say be indifferent and acceptant. They say working towards more indifference and acceptance.
Everything beyond us. In this, we must strive towards an acceptance and indifference towards everything that.
Strive towards an acceptance and indifference towards the things that happen to us.
Yeah.
And if that was 100%, it would be extreme and wrong. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
What does this really sound indicative of? Not really stoicism. It sounds indicative of nihilism.
Not quite. We're going into the extremes once more. If we're taking...
I think that's... I'm sorry, Jared. I'm sorry.
It's in Freudian slip there because everybody's interrupting everybody. Yeah.
Oh, I've lost my train of thought. It's you're trying to... I don't know.
Okay, I was gonna say that that stoicism is self-defeating by itself because it doesn't have a certain je ne sais pas about, like the vital essence in life, which is like what you want to create and what you actually love and care about and like what you want to. So like, all it can help you with is when you lose those things that you love and care about and you created. That's where stoicism becomes. It reminds you that in the end, you decide what you care about. And I was thinking about this the other day.
You decide how to react to adversity.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this the other day because I lost a position at my work because I was part-time at my work, but I was doing something that I loved, and then they offered me.
But does that mean you're striving towards difference and acceptance?
Talking.
Sorry, I said a comment.
Fucking talking.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so like, I was doing part-time at my work, but I was doing something that I loved, and then they offered me full-time to do something that I like hated basically, and I took it because I need to move out and I need to pay bills, and yesterday was my last day, but they like put it on me so abruptly because I thought I was going to work one more day doing like electrical, like I love that department, I love working with electronics, and then I have to work with like miscellaneous, which is like plates and like fucking salt shakers and shit, so like they spring it on me abruptly and I'm starting in that department and I just felt like shit and I was thinking like I could try to strive and aspire to be the stoic sage and like choose to embrace what had happened to me as the course of things and not look behind, not grieve, not mourn, and just embrace what exactly was right in front of me, what I was learning and shit, and like, but at the same time I thought if I do that, eventually I'm gonna feel like shit because I'm leaving myself out if I do that. I'm leaving out a part of me that wants to grieve, and that Stoic philosophy can even account for this because I can say I'm not going to care about the fact that I'm having opinions of grief and opinions of sorrow. I said I'm going to allow myself to feel bad. I'm going to allow myself to feel like shit. And it was all over my face. And when people asked me, I was like, yeah, I'm moving departments. I don't really feel like moving. I wish I could do full-time in that department, but they're only offering me full-time hours in this department. So I have to fucking do some shit that I don't want to do, and that's why I feel like this, and like I feel like I got it all out of my system yesterday just by feeling like shit, letting myself feel my feelings, letting myself in, like I understand that is shitty, and like that develops a sort of internal intimacy with yourself where you can say you can use the same Stoic principles, which is I decide what I'm going to care about. And I said, I'm going to decide that I don't care that I'm feeling this way. I don't care that I'm feeling like shit. I'm not going to try to fucking vamp that out of existence. And like, today I felt so much better fucking it was all out
So,
of my system.
but you did care.
I did care. I do still care. I wish I could do the other department, but I've accepted it completely.
Hence the nuance.
I'm like, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying you can use Stoic principles to transcend the self-defeating nature of Stoicism, because I add other elements to it that it's like, like there's other purposes in my life that can't be summed up or captured by Stoicism.
Can you if I'm retarded, can you explain again how it was self-defeating in the first place?
Oh, because you're saying, because of what you say, which is that Stoicism, left to its own devices, leads to radical nihilism. And
That's what they're saying. I'm disagreeing with this because I'm trying to separate the nihilism from the true Stoicism. The Stoic philosophy is pure in and of itself, but it's being polluted with these other ideas that you guys seem to think are lugged in with it, because you guys are nihilistic in some degrees.
No, I wouldn't say that. Yeah. As I was
Yeah,
trying
that is a judgment.
Well, Jared, I'm trying to defend this person in how I've just described this. My perception of what he's saying.
Trying to fill in the missing areas you're missing.
Yeah. The perception that I'm getting from this, my perception of this, is that he's trying to explain it or describe it in a very concise
I would
manner.
disagree that this self-defeating,
Which leaves stuff out.
Yeah.
No, I would disagree that his what he described as the self-defeating part of Stoicism was really Stoic, or was really Stoic philosophy, and when in fact it sounds more like nihilistic tendency.
Well, this is all subject to how you
Like
perceive
the
your life.
idea that
Jared.
like, oh, I don't care and that it doesn't really matter.
despite the fact that there's a revival in Stoicism today, the fact is
That's not part of
Stoicism as a
Stoic.
belief system died out and was replaced by Christianity, basically. And then there's also
That's not true.
there's also its shadow.
In the Roman Greek world.
There's also the shadow of all the.
Not complete. You're right. It is a part of the culture still, but like he's talking about the
I
mainstream.
don't see how Christian
It died out. That's
Christian
why
religion or Orthodox religion taught Stoic philosophy
It was
in any way.
rediscovered.
I said it replaced.
It was
by
rediscovered by Christians in the 16th century.
Yeah, that it was.
And they found it and they saw a belief system that had a strong sense of moral center, that had an understanding of hierarchy and your place in nature, that talked about providence and the well-ordered nature of things. They said, wow, this is a lot like the Bible, and they started to translate more, just it started to become more popular. So and then what they found out in the end was that it was strongly deterministic, it was materialistic, and it was naturalistic. And in those areas, it rejected their beliefs of Christianity, the idea that there are miracles in the natural world, because Stoics would say that a miracle is not really what it seems, but it's a natural event. It's not supernatural. It's not some kind of, but there are
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that either. I wouldn't necessarily agree that a Stoic would argue that.
At its core, Stoicism is deterministic, materialistic, and naturalistic, meaning they have naturalist, materialist explanations for things that follow in a deterministic fashion. That means that the universe happens in a well-ordered way, and that basically in a sense I don't know if free will is denied in its essence, but in the deterministic way,
Well, yeah,
it says
actually it
everything
is.
Everything that happens as a part of providence.
Remember in our study of what's his name, Chrysippus talks about what we were just talking about, the deterministic outlaws about how determinate
Everything that happened was what God intended to happen. That there's a relevance and urgent and necessity for its happening.
Well, no, but when you say everything that happens, what did you just say?
Everything that happens has a relevance and necessity.
Was intended to happen by God.
Yeah.
Right. In a way, if you understand who God really is, that's not an understatement, and it doesn't negate the whole free will aspect. Because if you know who God is, first cause, right? Every single event can be traced back to a first cause, which is free, which is thought. Everything came from thought. And it's decided, and then it was chosen. So we're kind of in the middle of a live stream here.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, that's life.
Yeah.
Hello and goodbye. Or hello.
So, the idea of it being predetermined, and nothing that free will doesn't exist because it was intended by God. How that doesn't necessarily disacknowledge free will at all if you know who God really is, which is the first cause of everything. The first cause can be traced back to a choice, to an action,
So you're saying God chose to not be in control of what happens?
No, I'm saying that people's free will choice is the God aspect. There's the law, and then there's the will, and both of them are God. There's the law, which is the cause and effect of everything that happens once a domino has been triggered, and then there's the cause, which is there's the effect. There's cause and effect, and then there's the first cause, which is what triggers anything that plays on this law dynamic.
If I may make a suggestion, Jared, perhaps we set a prompt with a very narrow scope so that we can attack it acutely. Which is to say, we'll have
Get your guitar.
got a guitar?
Can you just freestyle?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
We tend to digress quite a bit. And if we can pare down what we want to discuss, you can get more
The discussion tonight was about finding a problem I've found in this understanding of nihilism, which is that it's being confused with nihilistic philosophy, which is actually a contrarian view to Stoicism, because Stoicism is built on the assumption of causal determinism.
If I may, Jared. So
causal determinism negates nihilism. Because if everything has a cause.
So, to prove my point here, we digress quite a bit, or rather, you're going off on a tangent with it. If you want to have a discussion on that point, why not? You have this, so everything you just said. This is why in steps. So you have. This is what do we use for it? If you're breaking it down into more easily digestible or easily talked about topics or questions or challenges to this. Wouldn't that be more?
Are you talking about how we should
like the form of it?
How we should format a presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little drastic change in topic.
But we don't have to go into the topic of it. That's just a suggestion, something to consider.
Yeah.
Back onto that.
Well,
I still go.
How would I? Well, the way I want to tackle this was to do exactly what I did just now, which is to watch this video and do a reaction to the video. I wish Aaron hadn't left, because how are you going to answer a cell phone call in the middle of a podcast?
It might be important.
No, it's probably not though. But it's probably.
Back.
But anyway,
to the discussion of it. I think you insert too many loaded ideas into his argument. In that you're filling the gaps, as Aaron said, and you can't just fill the gaps. You're giving him intent.
Stoicism and the art of not caring.
Intent.
And not caring. Does Stoicism propagate not caring?
Once again, that's where the nuance is. The title is very blunt, but it's not. It's misrepresenting it in a sense, but he does a good job. He does a good job.
Yeah, and let the video finish, because right now it's good. Right now, I'm just starting to point out, just from maybe the half point, a little past the half point, where now it's starting to slowly talk about nihilism.
But not quite, because that's where the gap filling came in.
No,
You've already brought up a point
No,
which I have disagreed with my own perception of it, where your own perception of it has seen something that he has not stated yet.
If you see what this guy has posted, he talks about stoicism as a cure for the doomer. The doomer, as we talked about, is nihilistic. Is a nihilist.
But once again, how is he going to help someone out of nihilism with nihilism? It goes against our argument.
Exactly. No, that is our argument. He's okay.
But I think once again, we're going in circles.
In another video, he sells stoicism as a cure for nihilism. And now there's a video called "Stoicism and the Art of Not Caring." Nowhere in the Stoic philosophy, nowhere in any of the Stoics.
Once again, it's a blunt exaggeration of it.
No, but it's not, because we're. Okay, look, I'm gonna go back and replay this part again. Talk
We've
about.
already we have gone over this part many times.
Nothing is good and bad in and of itself. Only our judgments of it, right?
And then we tried to.
Is that Stoic philosophy?
We had a contrivance. If you remember my contrivance.
That's not Stoic philosophy.
Once again, I don't know how else to go over it.
So you should watch the rest of the video because you're giving him credit,
but
and you're not seeing.
I'm giving him credit for what he's already gone over. I'm not going to go into the future with it.
Okay, you don't see the contradiction here. Obviously, because you don't see the similarity between nihilism and stoicism.
I'm not seeing the similarity. What I'm seeing is an
I'm
extremist view.
sorry, not stoicism. You don't see the similarity between nihilism and solipsism.
I know. It's. So I misspoke as well. But it's. And I think you're not seeing the subtlety in this that he's trying to get at, that I'm trying to give a vehicle to. Because I'm not seeing it as him selling nihilism. I'm seeing very
Let's
much.
watch the rest of the video. I really wish that Aaron was here. Let me just like see what's up real quick. Get my head out there. Hey, bro.
Yeah, my sister. She's got it down.
Oh. Alright, I'll be right back.
Something important?
This is such a mess.
I wouldn't say it's a mess, no.
This is such a mess broadcast.
The only mess is perhaps it's getting a bit too heated.
How long has it been?
It is an hour and a half. So far.
Where is it at?
1 hour and 28 minutes.
Where?
Right here.
Oh, cool.
It's longer than I anticipated.
We'll probably stop at about 2 hours, like we usually did last time. Every show will probably be about 2 hours long. The first hour and the second hour. And I actually wanted to format it, Sam, to where when the first hour comes on, we have a timer, so that you know that that's your time to like phase in with the music. So that like, you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? And phase in with music, have a little break, and then we start the second hour, right? Alright, so we're gonna finish the video and continue the discussion. I'm really glad that was an important phone call and not what I thought it was.
Wow, that might have been important too, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah, maybe.
No, we'll talk about it later.
Okay, yeah, that's not okay. Let's finish this video and you guys can tell me if you think I'm totally crazy about thinking this is selling nihilism.
Happens to us, and instead focus our attention on controlling our reactions to the things that happen. We must put our best foot forward, acting and living with self-honesty, humility, and good virtue, and welcome whatever the world deals us in return, good or bad. With this, we can begin to free ourselves from the chaos of the world and find some form of happiness and presence within ourselves. The practice of Stoicism is not easy by any stretch, and arguably, to live a completely Stoic life is impossible. Likely, no person can be without moments of desire or negative reaction to the world around them. However, Stoicism gives...
Wait, does Stoicism teach that you should be free of desire?
No.
Okay, well if you just talk to you, that there's, okay, alright. So, but you don't see that as a contradiction, sorry. You can make sense of it. It's a nuance. Sorry. Anyway.
Well, Jared.
Obsessed with a target of wisdom to aim for, a happiness and calmness to strive for when things are at their apparent worst. In a time where chaos and anxiety run rampant across our screens,
Not trying to be ourselves, but trying to be happy and calm.
where cultural pressures to live certain ways and achieve certain things overwhelm us 24/7, where we spend a huge amount of time comparing ourselves to and wanting the approval of others, our sense of happiness and peace is becoming increasingly susceptible, and it is perhaps through stoicism that we can attempt to hold on to it. Starting from birth, we seemingly run, if not sprint through life, racing out of every moment, unsatisfied with what life is and constantly looking to the future for what life could be if we just obtained something more or different. Our cultures overwhelm us with the reinforcement of this idea, convincing us that in order to be happy, we have to achieve, buy, own, and live perfect, unaffected lives. This delusion, however, frenzies us.
Just say something about. Can you put it down?
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, Stoics believed that happiness, ataraxia, was a byproduct of
Yeah, you said
living
this
by
before.
virtue.
Yeah, you said this.
Whereas Epicureans.
He's not talking about virtue though at all.
Epicureans believed that ataraxia was the goal. It was like the goal. It's like do what makes you feel good, and that can be read to mean act virtuously because in the end it's going to provide the maximal.
We all know that just because it feels good doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah,
That's
why
not-
Epicureanism is flawed, and Stoicism is superior to it. Because
Why would you
it
mention
says-
Epicureanism
Because
as
that's what
he's
you're
a Stoic
saying.
philosopher.
That's what you're
That's
saying.
not necessarily the
No.
OG, basically.
Jared,
is
Jared,
Epicurean a Stoic philosopher?
Epicureanism was a different.
Sorry,
it
Epictetus.
was a,
Okay, yeah,
I was mixing
exactly.
it up.
Okay.
Epicureanism was a different school of philosophy at the time, and like there's just like this video. You're saying that this video is purporting ideas that to me strongly sound like Epicureanism, which is that doing what makes you happiest is the best thing to do, basically, and like whereas Stoicism doesn't assert that, and like. We might be right that this video is obfuscating the message of Stoicism.
Hell it is. Let's watch the rest of it.
Us with an anxiety that we are then told by culture we can rid ourselves of if we just achieve a few more things, make a little more money, be a little more popular, and buy a little more stuff, creating an endless feedback loop of unsatisfied hunger. If we cave into this, we surrender our life. We give up ourselves. We should not, like sheep, follow the herd of creatures in front of us, making our way where others go, not where we ought to go, Seneca writes. In the Stoic view, the stuff we often find ourselves chasing in life revealed to be rather petty and meaningless from a sufficient distance. We don't have much, if any, control on what happens to us, how people see and treat us, nor what happens because of what we do. And in the big...
Oh, really?
No, he said
Jared,
that in someone's view.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say that as his thing. Continue.
No, I'm gonna repeat that.
Alright, go ahead.
often find ourselves chasing in life revealed to be rather petty and meaningless from a sufficient distance.
Petty and meaningless from a sufficient distance.
It's such as the things that people do and pursue, like fucking like the.
We should see things in life that's petty and meaningless. Is that Stoicism?
Like the Met Gala in New York. You heard of that? The fucking Met Gala, the fashion show in New York, where people like put on like spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars crafting these epically fucking stupid dresses.
Yeah, they become
And,
absurd
like,
when you look at some of these things.
And like that, yeah, like that
Some of the
is
things people
that's
chase in life,
that's
is
stuff
what he
people
said.
ought not do. Yeah,
Look from a sufficient distance, you know.
that's what they're saying. You're saying that like you're trying to say that lens can be used in a lethal way, and it can be, but it's only when it's used to like it.
Okay, no, but listen. It's not just that. It's with everything else. Meaningless and.
We don't have much, if any, control on what happens to us, how people see and treat us, nor what happens because of what we do. And in
We have no control over how people treat us. What was that again?
control on what happens to us, how people see
What happens to us, how
and treat us, nor what happens because of what we do.
Or what
And
happens because of what we do. We don't have control over that.
Yeah, you can build a business, but you don't know.
Wait.
You don't have control of what's gonna happen.
We don't
to
have
us,
control.
like-
Wait. We don't have control of what happens because of what we do.
If you pose a question,
That's completely contrary to causal determinism.
No,
Which is that everything.
Because your rights can be violated, or your rights can be violated. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But he does try to. Well,
No, let's repeat that.
Let's keep watching.
I want to repeat that again.
Yeah,
'Cause
go
that's-
before it.
'cause That's not
Context is what
that's
we're talking
not stoicism.
I agree. Back up.
We follow the herd of creatures in front of us, making our way where others go, not where we ought to go, Seneca writes.
Whim of the U.S. government.
Can we what?
Can you guys act contrary to the law of the land, or the whim of the state?
Everybody can.
Yeah,
what are you
sure.
talking about?
Yeah.
Now here's
Everyone
this.
can, but
So here's where I'm going.
What do you got? What happens to you guys if you choose to live radically by that? You're gonna be impeded on by the state for
So
the
you're
force of the
Possibly.
state.
Yeah.
You're most likely
What's
going to
your
get
point?
black vans
My
if you go
point
against
is
it in
that
a way
you'll
that's
be
going to affect
defeated,
any sort of change.
and that you can't fucking control what happens to you. Can't just start an enterprise and be like, this enterprise is never gonna fail, and like fucking no, it's gonna fail, and you're gonna fucking
What does
learn
that
and
have to do with
you're
what
gonna
he was
create
saying?
something
Yeah.
new.
What are you trying to say here?
Because you're saying that you can control exactly what
Getting a
happens.
little emotional
I'm
there.
sorry.
we can break
It
this down
obviously
easily.
relates. You're saying that you can control.
What happens to you
Exactly
as a
what
result of
happens.
what you do?
Yeah, but not completely, because there's fucking there's the what's it called, the when the things break down,
Entropy?
entropy. Yeah, there's entropy. There's also fucking stochasticity or stochasticity, which is like the fucking random intermingling of things, and there's also fucking things like people violating your rights who are more powerful than you, like predators. Like there's such a thing as predators and prey, and you're the state is a predator, and like it exists and it can dominate you.
And going back to the story that I made up before, it's once again, this is highlighting to me how you are reacting to these things that are out of your control, that you can have no way of altering, or had no way of altering, and are now in the past so that you have to deal with them. Like if you were to go back again and you were to break this down into the 3 things that he states, and then you question them, you can, like what was one of the questions that he stated that you found issue?
First he said that nothing in and of itself is good or bad, only the judgments that we make of them, which is moral relativism.
Oh no, in this section of the video.
Oh, in this section.
That does sound like it's opposed to the.
I'm not convinced that he doesn't
Okay,
counteract that.
Be
later
a little more
in the video.
popular, and by a little more stuff, we surrender our life. We give up ourselves. We should not, like sheep, follow the herd of creatures in front of us, making our way where others go, not where we ought to go.
That are not related to the things he's saying.
Oh, but what is
Seneca
what's
writes.
related to it, though?
In the
But we can
In
get back
that
to
case,
that.
the other one wasn't that you brought up. But
No, but this one either. Like you just.
Oh no, he brought it up in the same sense when he was going over the social media and whatnot. People following others in what they want,
yeah,
trying to find
chasing
meaning in
desires that are
Okay,
meaningless.
I get it. Okay.
Stoic view, the stuff we often find ourselves chasing in life, revealed to be rather petty and meaningless from a sufficient distance. We don't have much, if any, control on what happens to us,
We have no control about what happens to us,
how people see and treat us,
how people see and treat us,
You might say but,
nor what happens because of what we
nor what happens because of what we do.
which is
do. And in the big picture, none of it really matters all that much. And so we must define our happiness not by what we own or achieve, not by how others see us, not by some
that part is.
Okay, you
completely-
fucking convinced me.
Let's watch the rest of it.
Let's see if
I
he
don't know if
contradicts
it's an
it.
argument
And
or
in the
if it's
end,
just a
nothing really
misinterpretation.
matters.
Exactly, because listen, have you ever heard the statement "this but"?
Yeah.
Like,
No, but he doesn't say this. But let's
well,
watch.
let's see.
some
You're
bigger
right.
picture of life, but by how we think and see ourselves and live our own life through what we
It's how we see ourselves and live our life that creates our own meaning.
Yes, not by some big. None of it really matters all that much. And so we must define our happiness not by
And
what
so we must define our happiness.
we own or achieve, not by how others see us, not by some bigger picture of life, but by how we think and see ourselves and live our own life through what we deem virtuous and relevant.
They're building up to a great point and then like swapping it with like fucking nihilism, like boop.
All right,
So,
let's watch the
bait
end
and
of
switch.
that.
Yeah.
Let's watch
Let's
the
watch
end
the
of
end.
that.
Stoicism tells us we can at last, if we wish, calmly accept the conditions of our indifferent reality and
Not
one
only accept the conditions of our indifferent reality.
up it with our own indifferent attitude in return.
And wait, say that again.
Stoicism tells us we can at last, if we wish, calmly accept the conditions of our indifferent reality and one-up it with our own indifferent attitude in return.
One-up it with our own indifferent attitude in return.
So this is where it becomes entirely too blunt. Is there more to it?
Yeah, blunt. It's way too coarse.
Then what he did is basically, you know how we were saying stoicism is a useful tool.
And the last thing you see is a blunt way being blundered.
Hold on a second. Is that what's happening here is now not only other schools of thought are using this useful tool, nihilists are attempting to use this useful tool.
Yeah.
And it is perverting it a bit.
Yeah.
No, but they're selling this to nihilists.
I don't know if you want
They should be, though.
for nihilists.
Now.
Nihilists need to get out of nihilism, though, so they're the people who need it.
But but it's not helping them if they're going to sell it as nihilism.
Now here's the thing: you don't know if he's trying to sell it as that. He may be trying to actually
market it
like
to
all
those people.
these. You're trying to market it to these people, or you're trying to market it to a broad audience, but failing in a way.
This guy's an MK.
Wait. Let's listen to this again.
The stuff we often find ourselves chasing in life, revealed to be rather petty and meaningless from a sufficient distance. We don't have much, if any, control on what happens to us, how people see and treat us, nor what happens because of what we do. And in the big picture, none of it really matters all that much. And so we must define our happiness, not by what we own or achieve, not by how others see us, not by some bigger picture of life, but by how we think and see ourselves and live our own life through what we deem virtuous and relevant. Stoicism tells us we can
deem virtuous.
at last, if we wish, calmly accept the conditions of our
moral relativism.
No, here's where the
Alright.
infallible grasp for
Jared.
truth comes in. If we have a faculty, we have a faculty in our mind to be able to deem what's objectively true, then what he's saying is true, but it's way too coarsely said. It's way too fucking broadly stroked. Like
Exactly. I think it's entirely too blunt, and I think he is trying to sell stoicism here, but failing at it, because all the points that he made at the end that you take such offense to is just like way too bluntly put stoic assets, I could say. Like how people treat you, you don't have intrinsic control over. Like just how you and your brother were arguing, you're trying to get something through to him, and you're trying to get something through to him.
yeah.
Obviously, you're not having an effect on each other,
Yeah.
so you have to go.
They
Okay.
didn't calm it down, though.
Yeah,
Good job,
it was
guys.
calmed down. Get the golf clap for that.
So what does this have to do with?
So you don't have control over how people are acting towards you. Like you couldn't make him act in the way that you wanted him to at the time.
Yes, but I could respond in a way that would.
Obviously, yes, you can respond
You
in a way that's
can causal
amicable,
determinism. Certain things result certain ways.
But
And
there's
by
no absolute way of
understanding this principle, we can control what happens to us.
So you
But
can
not
control
everything.
people. Yeah. You cannot have absolute control over it.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's. I don't think he means absolute, though.
Mm.
Yeah, no, not like that. I just couldn't get the door open. Hey.
So for the people.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand for live stream. She just laughed. She thought I was making fun of you. Anyway.
So if you don't mean it in the absolute, then yes, you have a measure of control over people by acting in a way which is reasonable.
Yeah.
But if someone's gonna just be messed up towards you, say they're having a real bad day, you're being nice to them.
you can't control their actions.
Exactly.
That can't be said to be true control.
You can't control their free will
That
actions.
can be what you call influence.
But
Yeah.
you can control
You can influence them.
what
That's a very
you
good way to
how
put
you
it.
react to things
How you receive it.
as a result
You can
control
inf-
how
you can-
things play out
You
for
can
you.
influence things, but you can't control things.
I'm just also gonna say
Like
for this.
nihilism. Another way that you could sum up nihilism is, what's it called? What's it called?
I don't know.
Do you not know?
No,
For this,
no,
for
no,
this,
no, no, no.
In
It's,
defense of this guy,
it's
it's an
called,
8-minute video on this topic, and it can't possibly go into the depth that's required of it. So,
Yeah.
required for it.
And he does take some things that are Stoicism and represents them very well, and then he tried to, I don't know.
So
I
think
don't know.
Okay. I just
It's
remembered.
kind of a,
I know, you could sum up. You could
C-minus
Sam.
essay.
Sam. You could sum up
There
nihilism.
you
Sam. You could sum up nihilism as learned helplessness.
To an extent,
You're helpless to everything, and you learn you learn to be more helpless to everything because you're so indifferent and so have no control over any external forces that's happening to you.
Yeah.
Because nothing exists outside yourself.
That-
You can't acknowledge a natural
that
law or
servile-
causal determinism.
That kind of worm-like impulse to be just like to just submit.
To be a victim.
And be
It's learned.
submissive.
It's
Yeah.
learned helplessness.
Yeah.
So that's why I say this idea of selling learned helplessness as stoicism.
Yeah. It's cucking all of us.
You have no control. Just you have to be indifferent and realize you have no control except for how you perceive it. Like they're talking about reactions as only internal reactions, not as external reactions. They're not acknowledging the external reactions on the external world.
Right, but that's another
That's
piece.
that's a part of stoicism that
Yeah.
they're denying.
Again,
Yeah.
8.5 minute video.
Right?
Yeah, and the obfuscation is real. They fucking bait and switch that shit. I saw that. So like, yeah, you made your point.
Yeah, you're right.
You made your point. This guy's a MK Ultra sleeper cell
Oh,
confirmed.
come on, guys.
Confirmed.
Okay, so you guys.
I'm still gonna give them the benefit
So you
of the
guys,
doubt.
that concludes my presentation on how stoicism is being sold as nihilism, and I want and
That's such
oh,
an
and
absolute thing to sell.
Epicureanism, however Sam wants to say it.
Yeah.
No, but look, we're gonna study in part 2. We're gonna study nihilism as a contrary point of view to stoicism. How nihilism is different. How nihilism counterpoints, or
I
like
got a good guide for you there.
counterpoints stoicism, right?
It is.
And we're gonna find
Perhaps
out.
a
We're gonna
counterpoint.
find out the real difference. That's what I want. I want us to all study nihilism, but from the perspective of how is it different than stoicism? How is it contradictory to stoicism? Finding this distinction between these two things is going to clarify both of them for us. Not just nihilism, but it sounds like Epicureanism is definitely one
which
we
means
have
that this
to.
argument goes.
We'd have to study Epicureanism too.
Could you play it again? That last part that we're taking umbrage with.
Yeah.
Revealed to be rather petty and meaningless from a sufficient distance. We don't have much, if any, control on what happens to us, how people see and treat us, nor what happens because of what we do. And in the big picture, none of it really matters all that much. And so we must define our happiness not by what we own.
Control, though. Like if you're in boot camp, for example,
Yeah.
like you could control it beforehand, but now you put yourself, and you could at any time quit and leave, but you are choosing to put yourself under a situation of no control.
And Jared, that's what you're saying Divinity did at those as like a precursor to this universe, is that they decided to put themselves in a situation where they weren't in control, and that
Or an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
At any
Well,
moment you could leave, but they don't because they feel.
No, that's
What book was that you were handing me, Seth, that was
Yeah,
going
it's
to tell
not
us
the
the
same,
difference
but really-
between...
I wouldn't tell you the
Like,
difference. I'm
the
saying that you got a lot of
thing is
content
like
here if you want to look
better
into
for,
cynicism
like,
and nihilism.
describing, like,
Oh, cynicism.
if
Cynicism has to...
like,
How is
the
cynicism
Gnostic
related to
worldview,
nihilism?
Well, this
like,
man is a
that,
cynic,
like,
but he's also a nihilist. This also
divinity,
goes to the
like,
point where
is
you
like,
can blend things
like
very
captured in
easily.
all divine
Especially going back
sparks,
into
you know?
Sam.
That like God like
Oh,
kind of
there's this
dissolved into
other
reality.
video I wanted to show you guys.
And like, you know, like
or a part of them did.
that they chose to do that, you know, that they decided to like create a from their you know.
Yeah, good point, Jared. But it still could. I don't know. Maybe we're being too easy on him, Seth. But it could be like we were just saying that it's just trying to be concise and blunt, and
So
he
this
fucks
is-
it up by doing so.
Yeah.
Well, there's well, I don't know. There's a defense. Accuse him of So it's hard to say.
That's
Yeah,
not
you're right.
found
No.
stoicism.
You're right.
That's just like, where did that come from? Like, and then there's like a fucking one.
Well, he's been
eye
saying
on
it
his
throughout the
face.
video, but you've been like, excusing
Not
it.
so bluntly.
Well, you're right.
Now
because
more
he
than
was,
ever,
like,
we are exposed to a
slightly
plethora
saying that, but he never completely said it, and then at that moment he completely said it.
Yeah.
He never heard the
If you frequent the internet, you have likely seen memes and videos with a character known as Doomer and or any of his counter characters, Boomer, Bloomer, and Zoomer. If you have not, these are them. Each of these characters represents a distinct personality type, usually associated with a specific generation within current society. The Doomer character is especially popular and is what we will be focusing on here. The Doomer is an individual who is typically in their 20s and male, although a Doomer in the philosophical sense does not need to be either. He or she does, however, need to be someone who feels a sense of aimlessness and loneliness, and is consequently stricken with a deep despair for life. For the Doomer, life is meaningless, and the world is inevitably doomed by humanity's ignorance, greed, and futility. As a result, the Doomer sees little to no reason in engaging in traditional pursuits, and thus retreats from society into apathetic isolation. This character is often used in videos and memes to illustrate various experiences that come with this pessimistic sense of life. Things like working a dead-end job, struggling to maintain or get over romantic relationships, excessive drinking and smoking, feeling alienated from one's friends and family, etc. This character's popularity and widespread relatability is very telling about the conditions of the modern person, specifically that of the current young adult generation. It reveals the depth of pessimism and nihilism being experienced, a hopelessness for both the now and for the future. One of the Doomer's counter characters is the Boomer, the name being derived from the term baby boomer, an individual born between 1946 and 1964, 2 generations or so before the Doomer. However, the age and generation of a Boomer does not necessarily matter. What does matter is this character's contrasting outlook on life. Opposed to the Boomer possesses a positive, can-do attitude. More specifically, in the context of the meme, the Boomer's attitude exists in a naive, blissful ignorance of truth. The Boomer chugs along in their ignorant delusion, unaware of the reality in which they live, mistakenly thinking they have it all under control. Where the Doomer is aware of the world's conditions and consequently pessimistic about them, the Boomer is unaware and thus ignorantly blissful. Unlike the baby boomers, the Doomer was born in or around the 90s and grew up through an era when technology developed at an unprecedented rate in an exceptionally small amount of time. The advent of the internet as well as affordable internet devices would completely change the way people could experience and understand the world. During this internet generation, children and young adults had access to a completely open and constant flow of information, an ability to see, hear, talk with, and engage in the entire world in real time, all the time. The world would shrink down to fit in the palm of one's hand, allowing one to easily see just how absurd, chaotic, and meaningless it truly is. As a result, a huge portion of an entire generation would realize early on that things weren't all good, that the can-do, positive attitude of the Boomer was outdated and ignorant of what was really going on. With lingering counterculture narratives from the 60s and 70s, a decreasing popularity in Christianity following the Second World War, and an increasing access to information, this generation would be left with no traditional meaning or hope to fall back on. A generation where many find a piece of themselves in the Doomer. So now what? Are we doomed to exist in a world where the options are either blissful ignorance or informed melancholy? In order to better understand and deal with growing pessimistic and nihilistic tendencies, it is helpful to refer to the work of 19th century philosophers Arthur Schopenhauer and Friedrich Nietzsche. Arthur Schopenhauer is often regarded as the philosopher of pessimism, arguably the original doomer. Like the doomers